I wish I would have known about this sooner. They should teach this stuff in high school, are things I hear people say time and time again when I'm teaching about managing money, whole life insurance, and the infinite banking concept.
I hear that a lot too, and it makes sense. When you find something that works so well, it's hard not to look back and wish you would have had that knowledge or that product earlier in life.
In this episode 477 of the Wealth Talks podcast, we're going to talk about things we wish we knew about finances before we turned 18. And this covers high school too. Some of the things we're going to talk about should be taught in high school.
Boy, if I was 17 again, I would want to know that paying your house off early or just paying your house off doesn't always produce the financial freedom that everyone promises it will. We've paid off 3 houses completely. One of them we paid off in 5 years, our very first house. The second house we paid cash for. And I remember after paying off that second house, how it really stressed us financially. There were other needs that came up in our life. We didn't have a cash cushion, and it forced me to take a night job to put food on the table for the family.
We were very diligent in paying off our house, directing a lot of our finances towards that goal of paying off the house. But in doing that, we neglected other areas in our finances. And because we didn't have a cash cushion, that really put a crimp in our lifestyle and in our finances. It was more stressful than if we had just been making regular monthly payments.
There's something about those regular monthly payments that if you've calculated that you're ready to make a house payment, that is a comfortable cash flow for you. And trying to put extra money, you've got to scrimp someplace else in your life, especially when people are first starting out financially. And so paying off your house does not always produce the financial freedom that everyone talks about.
It's not necessarily a bad thing in its place, but just the idea of paying off your house, it doesn't spell financial freedom.
It gets a wrong priority.
Something I wish I knew, people talk about paying yourself first. Well, what does that really mean? I thought it meant you pay your electric bill, you buy your food, you buy your clothes, your housing, you pay your bills so that you can take care of yourself.
Those things are important.
Absolutely, but those are really part of your living expenses, so your lifestyle. It's not saving money to keep for your future. And I didn't understand that. So a lot of times when we were paying off our house and buying food, paying our bills, we were neglecting to keep money for ourselves.
As I was thinking what I wish I would have known about finances before I was 18, the first thing that popped into my head was knowing more about financial math. But then as I thought about it, I did know a good deal about financial math. You gave us math curriculum that did cover simple and compounding interest, the basics of that. And then as I got older, Dad, you gave me the HP12C and the manual to go with it and had me go through some of the time value of money questions in there. So I did have some financial math skills by age 18. What I wish I would have known before age 18 is had a better learning structure for financial knowledge. And I'd like to read a quote here by Elon Musk that talks about the learning model. He says, it's important to view knowledge as a sort of semantic tree. Make sure you understand the fundamental principles, the trunk, and the big branches before you get into the leaves, or there's nothing for them to hang on. So I had a good foundation, but then as I got older, I feel like I spent more time in the leaves before I built out some of the branches.
That's interesting.
I think of what Steve Jobs used to do when he had his corporate meetings. He'd bring people in and they would list all the ideas that Apple should do. And then Steve would get up and he'd cross out everything except 3 of those. And he'd say, okay, we're going to spend 80% of our time on this one, 10% of our time on this one, and 10% on this one, so that when we accomplish the one we're doing 80%, we'll jump right into the second one that we're spending 10% on. And if we don't focus our goals to do that, we do spend a lot of time in the leaves, just chasing this or that or something else.
Choosing those priorities is so important. And so some of the financial basics that contribute to the trunk and the branches the other financial knowledge can then be built upon, I think would include understanding the fundamentals of business bookkeeping, because those apply to both business bookkeeping and personal bookkeeping. Understanding the different types of taxes, so income tax, payroll tax versus other types of taxes. Do you have a basic understanding of how those work? How financial math would apply if you're trying to evaluate a real world investment. So many of the problems that come across in financial math are pre-canned with all the elements that you need to solve them. But that rarely happens in real life. You have to dig for those elements. So what elements are you really looking for?
That's a good
If you don't
point.
have all the information when you sit down to figure out something financially, you're running in circles. And that can be a distraction of leaves instead of the actual structure.
Something that I'm thinking here too, as we're talking about this, is we're talking about things we wish we knew. But we have to remember at age 18, we're also lacking a lot of experience. And sometimes the depth of these things that we're talking about, we wish we knew, is based on experience. So hopefully we can share our experience here and give some perspective for the knowledge for an 18-year-old.
And it doesn't mean that every 18-year-old should understand how to figure internal rate of return and net present value on an investment, but they should at least have an understanding when they might want to use those things,
At the same
because
time,
then they can go find the answers.
you shouldn't go through high school, college, and graduate school like I did and find out you don't know how to do double entry bookkeeping.
That's kind of important. It seems like that would be a foundational financial principle or financial skill that people should have.
It should be.
I wish I would have known more about life insurance in general. We had term life insurance, and back in 2005, when you first read about whole life insurance and the benefits of being able to use cash value during your lifetime, really the infinite banking concept, you were very excited. You bought a policy, then you would teach financial principles to other people. And you said, Michelle, I need to change professions. I've got to help people understand how to use whole life insurance. And so you studied, got your license, and then I want to follow in so I can help you in this business. So I started studying about life insurance so that I could take my exam. And of course, I read about term insurance and whole life insurance, and they didn't talk about infinite banking. But what they did talk about, I was thinking, if we had known about the benefits of whole life insurance, I think, in retrospect, I think we would have chosen to get whole life insurance for the value it would give us long term. And I don't know that for sure, but when I was growing up, the only thing I ever heard about life insurance was my dad coming in and saying, I'm worth more dead than I am alive. And that really disturbed me because I certainly didn't feel that about my dad. But I think a lot of people struggle with that. And maybe if they just had some more knowledge about life insurance, then they would know better what to do with life insurance and how to purchase it.
I think this goes back to life experience again, because at age 25, one of my patients, Nathan Steinbach, taught me about whole life insurance. And I said, nope, I'm going to buy term and invest the difference, because that's the financial education that I had got through school. And he said, you'll be sorry before you're 65.
And you were.
I was, thankfully. But, sometimes the teacher only appears when the student is ready. And so a lot of the things we're talking about, we wish we'd have known before we're 18, but maybe we wouldn't have really known them had we been exposed to them. And that just comes with life experience, or maybe values even. At 25, I wasn't married. I had no kids. I couldn't imagine why anyone would need more death benefit than to get you put in the ground properly, So there is a time and a place where people look at things differently in life. And maybe that's part of the education that's missing in our society today.
I think it is partly education, because you have certainly been able to teach us those values, myself and my siblings. 7 of us are not married yet. We have life insurance. One of my siblings is married, and he had life insurance before he was married.
Yeah, we had life insurance for you while you were children.
Yes.
I wish that I would have learned how to recover the cost of capital and not be so fearful about paying interest to other people. before I was 18. Paying off those houses was a fear of having to pay interest to the mortgage company. I did not want to do that because I came out of an era where parents were teaching their kids pay cash for everything because they had survived the Great Depression and interest rates went crazy and people lost their property during that time. Paying off our house early was basically a reaction to the fear of paying someone else interest. Now, we shouldn't fear about paying an interest rate because none of us work for free. And our money shouldn't work for free, and we shouldn't expect someone else's money to work for free either. So interest paid on money that's borrowed is the fair wage for that money's work.
Something I wish I would have known before I was 18 is more about financial goal setting. I feel like I was afraid to set some financial goals early on that were specific enough because I didn't want to be too overconfident, pie in the sky. I didn't want to be arrogant, like setting, this is what I'm going to do, stick it in somebody's face. I kept the verse in the Bible in mind, James 4, verse 13, that talks about, come you who say today or tomorrow we'll go into such and such a city and spend a year there and make a profit. And he said, you don't know what your life is going to be like in a year. And that's true. You do want to be careful about not setting a goal that's so specific that it shuts out other possibilities. But what I missed was that setting a specific financial goal, if you do or don't achieve it, it can provide insight into God's direction in your life. As I have set some more specific financial goals that are reasonable based on the circumstances, that has become more evident to me over the years.
I think sometimes people don't set goals because they're afraid they're making a commitment that if they change that direction in life, then they're going to be considered a failure. Other people jump into things so quickly and then they go, oh, I shouldn't have been in this at all. I'm losing money fast. And I think of the game of basketball. If you're carrying the basketball, if you hold the basketball and you jump up in the air and you come back down, you just committed a penalty. But you can pivot in basketball, planting one foot and going in a full 360. And sometimes that's what we need to realize about our financial goals. If we're heading one direction, maybe it's time to stop and pivot instead of jumping into something else that we're going to lose money out to.
A lot of people could learn from that. If they could pivot instead of jumping, then they don't lose the continuity of that past experience and have to start all over starting fresh, but they're taking that momentum and turning it in a new direction. This leads to something that I wish I would have known before 18, is that it's better to start where you are and test an idea as soon as possible instead of building out something to perfection before you see if it's a good idea or not. This carries over into business, but it also has very serious financial implications as well.
Out of curiosity, is there something about finances you wish you would have known by the time you were 18? Something that would have made life better or easier or both? If there is, put your thing in the comment, please. We'd like to know. We'll be right back after this break.
Policy design is critical to having cash value early in your policy and having it grow quickly. Regular whole life insurance starts out with little to no cash value and a relatively high death benefit. But Nelson Nash, the founder of the infinite banking concept, said, your need for cash during your life is greater than your need for death benefit. That's true. So if you design the policy differently with a paid up additions rider, you can bring that cash value up sooner and cause it to grow better and reduce the death benefit a little bit. This is good because your need for cash during your life is greater than your need for death benefit. Over the years, the cash value and the death benefit are going to grow in a well-designed policy like this until your death benefit is actually higher than it would be in a regular whole life insurance towards the end of your life, which statistically is when you're most likely to need it. That is a win all the way around, and that's the way we write policies here at McPhee Insurance. If you want a well-designed policy that's designed to have cash value early and have its cash value grow quickly, there's two ways you can get it. You can get it from us here at McPhee Insurance. That's the way we write policies. Or if you have an insurance agent you know, like, and trust already, then you can use our resources that we publish on McPheeInsurance.com and on YouTube, McPhee Insurance, to learn how to read a whole life insurance illustration, how a good policy should be designed, and you can use that information along with the agent you know, like, and trust to write a policy that will work for you. And once it is all set up and ready to go and you're ready to purchase the policy, if you want to double check it, you can use our insurance review service and we'll let you know if it's a good policy or not. It's well worth the $75 to have that peace of mind. If you want good life insurance or you want your life insurance reviewed, you can contact us by phone at 702-660-7000 or by email. Our email is team@mcpheeinsurance.com.
We've talked about what we wish we knew about finances before we were age 18, but that's only part of the picture. What is it that we knew that we're glad we did know by age 18?
I am thankful that I knew basic math and critical thinking skills, because those two skills have allowed me to feel confident in jumping in to learn any new skills that I want to add.
Those skills that come from algebra, geometry, trigonometry, calculus, a lot of people are saying, why do we have those courses in high school anymore? But people that go through those courses learn to think in a different way that other people never do. And it helps you solve problems. Maybe you'll never use calculus again in your life after high school, but the brain cells that were triggered by that will help you logically think out other things in life, especially in the financial world.
My parents taught me to save money when I was very young. So anytime I earned $1, they had a certain percentage I was to save, a certain amount I could give away, and a certain amount that I could spend. And that stuck with me.
I think something my parents instilled in me is the desire to work. I remember my father as a school teacher would take summer jobs and he would have my brother and I go with him. At 10 years old, I was painting the outside of a school building in Silverton, Oregon, with my brother who was 3 years older, and we were up on a 20-foot scaffold. Those were skills that made me realize that work was part of being successful in life.
Along with that work is the idea of serving other people, because really that's what work is. And I remember when I was just like 10 years old, and I had been gone at an event all day, but my dad had been helping a family move into their home. And he broke away, he stopped, picked me up, and we went back to that home. And I went to the woman of the household and I said, "Is there anything I can do to help you?" And I was 10 years old and it seemed natural to me, but it made such an impression on that family that they came to my parents the very next day and they said, "We would like Michelle to be able to babysit our children." And, my mom, I was 10. My mom made some stipulations and some limitations on that. But very early on, I realized that when you serve people, opportunities open for you.
Michael Norton, a psychologist, has said that serving other people, doing for them, or even spending money on them is the shortest distance to happiness.
As you're talking about work, you had me work with you as I was growing up. And something I took away from learning how to work was that work could be fun and enjoyable. So many people view work as a drudgery, and that's going to seriously limit them financially. I'm glad that I had that understanding, that perspective of work growing up.
I think moderation was something that my parents taught me to appreciate, that we didn't have to have everything that the Joneses had to be happy, to be fulfilled in life. And so sometimes people think it's always going to be the next thing in life, that the extra dollar, the extra car, the extra television, the extra phone, whatever it is in life that they're after. And Solomon wrote a long time ago that those who desire money are never going to be satisfied with it. Money is not something just to make us happy. You cannot buy happiness. Money can't buy you love.
I think moderation, along with discipline and patience, are very important, because that keeps us from saying, "Oh, the Joneses have that, and I also want it, but I don't want to wait to have it. I'm going to grab this credit card and go pay for that." Because then when you've got that credit card, those balances can rise up. And many people don't realize that when they're 18. And so very quickly, they'll find themselves in credit card debt, paying outrageous interest without even realizing what it costs them. And so I think the moderation that you talked about, Tom, discipline and patience to wait and not just quick pull out plastic, I think that was very important for our finances.
Young kids also go to college right out of high school because they're told that's what you're supposed to do, or that's you got to get the college experience, and they end up taking on student loan debt, which can be another burden like credit card debt that adds up before you really understand what the magnitude of that debt means for the rest of your finances.
I think about my upbringing about money and finance too was a sense of gratitude. And one of the ways to express gratitude is by giving. And the word giving and gratitude are associated with the word grace. And I like this quote by G.K. Chesterton. He says, "I would maintain that thanks are the highest form of thought, and gratitude is happiness doubled by wonder." And without gratitude, it's very hard to be creative and think, how can we expand what we're doing right now? Because there's only so much money that any person needs to live on. And if we're thinking of how we can expand our finances so that we can give, that gratitude spills over and allows us to be more productive.
I think an easy exercise for gratitude is to sit with a pen and paper and to just start writing, I am grateful for. And just start listing all the things you're grateful for in your life. And some of them are non-monetary things, but spend time thinking about the monetary things, listing them out. There's so many things. And when you can be grateful for all of that, I think that's a good exercise.
Something I'm thankful for is for the principles and the values that both of you taught me as I was growing up. As I think about the principles that I want to teach my children as well, there's a few things that I want to add to the list, but I also want to make sure that they still get the same principles and the values that you have taught me.
As I look back on my childhood, there were 8 of us living in an 800 square foot house with 1 bathroom, 4 girls and 2 boys. We had central heat. It was a wood heater in the living room, and it was cold. And looking back, we were poor. But I do not remember being poor as a child because of the gratitude, the work ethic, the saving concept that our parents put into our mindset, even when we were poor.
So it sounds like you had joy in the house in spite of circumstances.
We certainly did.
This has been a good exercise to think this way. Of course, we don't know what we don't know, but with the knowledge we have now, we can see that things could have been better and easier if we had had that knowledge sooner. But on the other side of the coin, we had a lot of good principles that did help us to succeed. Not everybody gets the same principles, but everybody has a foundation that they can look to and pull values that can help them to succeed.
That's for sure. If you've already made a comment about what you wish you would have known about finances before you were 18, please leave a comment now about what you're glad you knew about finances before you were 18. I'm looking forward to reading those comments. I'm sure they're going to be very interesting.
If you haven't commented yet, please take a moment. It doesn't have to be long. We just want to know what you wish you would have known about finances before you were 18 and what you're glad you did know about finances before you were age 18. We look forward to reading them very much. And come back next week for a new episode about whole life insurance. We'll have a guest appearance from Jasper in the studio. He's our 9-week-old German Shepherd puppy, and we're excited for you to meet him right here next week on Wealth Talks.